Today we're going to be making a toasted panini with Midamar's Halal Deli Bologna. We'll start by combining 3/4 cups of mayonnaise with 2.5 heaping tablespoons of basil pesto. I like mine to be extra strong, so if you prefer a more subtle pesto flavor, I'd recommend cutting the pesto to about 1.5 tablespoons. Once that's well combined, we'll cover and keep refrigerated. Next, I cut a loaf of ciabatta bread with a serrated blade. You could also use a bread knife for this, but I've found that a serrated blade works just as well. Then we cut the loaf into quarters. Next, we'll baste the bread with some olive oil on each piece. This step doesn't seem worthwhile, but this extra bit of oil helps make sure that our sandwich isn't too dry once it's ready to eat. Next, I placed 1 tablespoon of the pesto mayo on each piece of bread and spread it thin. This ended up being just enough that we could taste the spread without it overpowering the whole sandwich. Can't skip the cheese! I used 2 slices of Swiss per sandwich that I had split in half. Now we'll place some of Midamar's Halal chicken bologna on the sandwich. If you want to have the really photogenic look, all you have to do is fold the bologna in half and shingle it across the sandwich. Now we'll add some greens. I like using spinach instead of lettuce most of the time because it's really nutritious and it brings a nice earthy tone to practically everything it's in. Hit it all with a little salt and pepper if you so choose. I typically don't do this if I'm making a sandwich at home, but it is pretty tasty. Finally, we'll top our sandwich with the other piece of bread and prepare it to be toasted. To do that, we'll baste it with a little more olive oil. Flip your sandwich and baste the bottom side with the olive oil. Move it over to a pan on low heat and set it oil side down. Now we'll baste the top piece of bread with more olive oil. We don't have a panini press, so I thought I'd show how to do it at home. I grabbed the biggest spatula we had and simply pressed the sandwich down for a minute or so. It's not exactly the same and it takes a while longer, but the result you get is practically the same as a panini press. Once I was satisfied with the flatness of my sandwich, I moved them to the side of the pan. Then I added in about a tablespoon of water and then covered it with the lid, being sure to let it vent. This creates steam, which will help our cheese get nice and melted. Once the water is completely evaporated, remove the lid and grab a couple spatulas and press down for about 30 seconds or so. Now we'll flip the sandwiches, add another tablespoon of water, and cover with the lid until that evaporates. In addition to melting the cheese, the steam helps to make sure that the center of our sandwiches get heated through as well. Finally, we'll flip the sandwich one last time, press it firmly with our spatulas for about 15 to 20 seconds per sandwich, then we'll remove that from the heat. Serve it up with chips and some classic tomato soup and enjoy. And that's it for this week. Let me know what you thought of this recipe in the comments below, and we'll see you next week with another tasty halal recipe.